All right, this is a bit of a different video on weight loss. You don't need another video on calories in, calories out. This is also a guide that's centered around helping hybrid athletes or just athletes in general who want to maximize their body composition to fit in with their athletic goals. I think it really is one of the most under-discussed aspects of performance nutrition right now. Everyone's always obsessed with carving up for their next workout, which, don't get me wrong, is something that's worth prioritizing once you've got your actual body composition in check. But until you've got your body composition in check, it's just a little bit short-sighted focusing on things like that. Anyway, so I've got skin in the game and I'm not just riffing about this stuff. I've recently lost 15 kilos and I've still got a little bit more to lose, and my workouts are still going great. I'm running faster than ever. I mean, that's the main reason that I've lost this weight, just to improve my overall athleticism, but because my goal is to run a sub 12 second 100 meters this summer. So if you're looking to do the same thing for your body composition and improve your athleticism, this guide has everything you need in it to individualize your cut and increase your chances of success and also sustainability after the cut. All right, just to do my due diligence for the video, I want to acknowledge that the primary driver of weight loss is a calorie deficit. But like I said, it's not just as simple as being equipped with that information. The real information that you need is how to individualize that so that you can adhere to it and sustain it in the long run. So with that in mind, one of the first things that we need to individualize for your cut is your rate of loss. A faster rate of weight loss or a larger energy deficit is a really good buffer for any sort of tracking errors with your calories. It's also really good for motivation, seeing really fast changes on the scales. But where it falls a little bit short for some people is it doesn't give you enough time to build sound nutritional habits. With a slower rate of weight loss, we have to pay more attention to tracking our calories because a couple of errors throughout the day compounding could lead to too big of an error and actually put us back into a surplus. But where it is a more optimal strategy is for those people who've never been lean before, so it stretches out the cut and it gives them time and practice to build sustainable nutritional habits so that when the cut's over, they don't just rebound to their old body composition. And honestly, once you've been working in this field for long enough, you do just start to see that pattern. Most people don't have an issue losing weight at various stages in their life. Majority of people just have a sustainability issue. So the one exception to the rule about smaller deficits and longer cuts for people who need time building these nutritional habits is sometimes we'll do a larger deficit at the start of their cut because they just need to see some changes on the scales to buy into the process and get that motivation. Once they're bought in and they've shifted some weight on the scales, often then they're a lot more open to adopting a more sustainable long-term approach to their weight loss. The next thing you want to think about is, are you going to adopt a macro tracking approach or are you not going to track your macros? A lot of people get confused once they hear that you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. They think that therefore you have to track your macros. You don't have to track your macros to be in an energy deficit, especially if you're eating roughly the same foods every single day. You can just adjust the amounts that you're eating each meal, and then you have a really scientifically adjustable diet based on what's happening on the scales. Or like I said, if you're just eating barely anything and trying to speed run your cut, obviously you can just assume that you're probably in some sort of a deficit. In my opinion, the real goal of tracking your macros isn't to do it forever, and it shouldn't be the primary facilitator of your whole lean lifestyle. Calorie tracking is something that you use to gain what is known as food literacy, because most people who aren't in control of their body composition, they just have no idea how many calories they're eating and especially where those calories are coming from. But once you've been through, any sort of period of 2 to 6 months of tracking your macros, you just start to get a general better feel for what macros and how many calories are in each meal that you're eating. There are seasoned bodybuilders like Alberto Nunez that do bodybuilding preps just entirely by feel without tracking a thing. And it's just an example of someone who has really high food literacy. So you need to make a self-assessment or work with a coach and figure out how food literate you are and what sort of a cut you're going to do. And then that's going to inform the degree of tracking required. This is inevitably where we run into the whole food quality or if it fits your macros conversation, where, realistically, you can lose weight eating fried chicken and candy all the time. Having said that, realistically, you won't do that. You won't sustain your weight loss if that's how you choose to get there. And you'll probably just feel really bad all the time. There was definitely a period, probably like 8 years ago on social media, where every fitness influencer was making it seem like the dream. It's like, oh, you can eat whatever you want as long as you track your macros. But you just end up creating this new form of hell for yourself, just living off your MyFitnessPal or always interacting with your Macro Factor app. If you want to have real lifestyle oriented, good nutrition and body composition, all roads ultimately lead back to having a decent degree of food quality and eating somewhat the same things consistently. Because too much processed food, yeah, sure, it is possible to be lean, but it's a pain in the ass tracking it all, usually feel bad, and it just isn't as sustainable as what it often is made out to be. Tracking macros, it's not so you can eat candy and still lose weight. It's so you can gain food literacy and just build a good food and nutrition lifestyle. Hunger is something that you aren't going to deal with when you're getting lean, and it's something that is pretty individual as far as hunger responses to different levels of energy deficits. But my experience and a lot of other people's tend to be the start of the cut is quite difficult because your body's used to not eating as much food all the time. You end up sort of hitting this green patch in the middle where you get a little bit of momentum with it and your body starts to get used to eating a little bit less, but you're not actually that lean yet. But then towards the end of the cut, that food noise and hunger does start to ramp up again for a lot of people, and it's usually what brings the cut to an end. It is great to understand food volume hacks like eating a lot of sweet potato, pumpkin, things like sugar-free jelly or sugar-free soft drinks. You can't volume hack your way to feeling full the whole way through a cut. Maybe you will feel full the whole way through your cut, but your stomach will just feel terrible and you'll be doing gnarly things to the toilet all the time. It's just not enjoyable. You'd honestly just rather be hungry and not have all your guts messed up. I'm not a big gut health person, but there's just a certain point of all those sweeteners and things like that. They just do a number on you. Even clean food, or even just getting it from things like fiber, like from high fiber, high water content vegetables and things like that. It's not really the way you want to go past a certain point. You should experience hunger when you're in a cut. And if you adjust your expectations, it won't feel as bad when you actually get hungry, especially when you start to understand a little bit more about where your hunger comes from. So it's not really a question of do you emotionally eat? It's really just a question of how emotionally you eat. Or other people talk about it as physiological hunger versus hedonic hunger. When we talk about emotional eating, a lot of people think about that as like, oh, someone who's depressed and crying alone in their room, just eating a lot of cake or something like that. But emotional eating is also just, eating at work when you're bored because you hate your job, or, food is just tasty food, especially is just such a source of dopamine for everyone. Everyone has their own level with this. And a lot of people don't realize how much of your hunger is from that and how much that in particular drives a lot of your eating patterns until you start to do some reflection on it. But then the other side of understanding that is we have ways to combat our emotional eating when we're in a cut, like, just keeping ourselves a little bit busier. That could be finding more enjoyable forms of work to do, distracting yourself with socializing with a mate, or maybe even starting up a new hobby. All of these things can be amazing tools to stop you from eating as much. A big part of the reason that I've been so successful in this cut is I can just distract myself with my job because I love what I do. It definitely would have been harder for me to lose 15 kilos if I didn't like my job. I had to go back to my family at home that I hated, or I had a boss yelling at me all day. These are all sorts of things that are going to drive more stress and emotional eating. So if you've got a lot going on in your life, maybe reassess whether it's a good time to go into a cut for you right now. But yeah, if you are going into a cut, try to think about the stress in your life and how that's going to affect it. All right, what about training on a cut? Training is really important. Obviously, it's going to help you maintain all that muscle that you've built, or contrary to popular belief, you can actually build muscle in a cut depending on your circumstances. Obviously, if you have a really advanced developed physique, you're probably not going to build muscle during it when you're in an energy deficit. But if you have a physique like mine, yeah, you can probably build your physique in an energy deficit even. Especially if you allocate enough of your calories to pre-workout nutrition to fuel high quality training. So that's obviously one of the things that we're thinking about most within our calorie budget. Most people are trying to manage two things: not going to bed hungry and having good fuel for training, which, look, I believe a lot of it, depending on what your workouts are, is a little bit psychological, or more just chronically how many calories you've been consuming. But regardless, it just feels good to go into the gym with a little bit of food in your stomach and fuel in the system. It's funny, you do see so many people complaining about how bad their workouts get anytime that they try to get lean, but I really think this could be resolved for most people just with some better meal timing. Now, by the end of the cut, or if you're in a large energy deficit, that's sort of what you might have to choose between: some suboptimal workouts, or maybe going to bed hungry occasionally, but it's just a good thing to think about. Whatever you're having the most trouble with, that's just what you should allocate the most calories towards. Something you should also try before your next workout, if you think you're lacking a little bit of fuel, is just throw on some music, have a little bit of caffeine, and see if that gets you in the mood. You might be surprised how much that replaces pre-workout nutrition. I'm not saying you should always playlist and caffeinate your way out of hunger symptoms, but especially in a short-term period when you're in a cut, it's absolutely worthwhile. And this is something I want to talk about as well, just the whole carb culture, or you got to fuel your workouts if you're a hybrid athlete. As I said before, if you have amazing body composition, by all means, this is one of the bigger rocks to focus on. But for the average hybrid athlete, I think it's completely short-sighted because the average hybrid athlete has very average body composition, and sucking down packets of maple syrup every time you go out for a run that's longer than 5Ks, I don't think it's aligning with people's real body composition goals, or it's at least interfering with them. Even if it leads to some suboptimal workouts, over the long term, just optimizing your body composition and then starting to suck down all these gels and maple syrups during your workouts, that's what's going to lead to the most optimal performance in the long run. But you're putting the cart before the horse if you're obsessing and optimizing all over this intra-workout nutrition and you're just jiggling all over the place. I also don't want to crap on people too much for just wanting to live action role play as a serious endurance athlete. So if doing the gels and things like that helps you tap into that, like by all means, but yeah, I've just said my piece on it now. Now here's 3 things that you should buy, especially if you have the money to do so, that are going to make your cut almost impossible to fail. The first one is a walking pad. So these are anywhere between $150 to $250. I mean, I'm sure you could spend as much as you want on a walking pad. I spent $180 on mine and it's completely changed my life. I had a bit of a failed cut towards the end of last year where I didn't end up getting that lean. And a big part of that is because I was trying to just increase my general activity, but I had to leave the house anytime I wanted to do steps. Without the walking pad, I was struggling to hit 15,000 steps a day. Now that I've got one, I am easily crushing 27,000 steps a day. And honestly, the rate limiter is my connective tissue and just sort of building myself up to that amount. Having a walking pad is insanely convenient. I talk to so many people that are like, why do you need a walking pad? You can just go for a walk outside, but you don't. Or like, even if you do, you would walk more if you had a walking pad. So that's why you should get one if you want to be lean. The next one for me is a Ninja Creami. So just being able to smash a pint of protein ice cream every single night that tastes amazing, has amazing texture, just makes the cut really sustainable. I do pretty hectic mix-ins with mine, so it's actually got a decent amount of calories in it. A lot of my creamies could even have up to 1,000 calories in them. Doesn't matter because I'm putting in the steps for it. And it's the only real treat that I'm eating. Well, there's one other source of treats that I've introduced with the next purchase, but it is just, it stops me going out and eating way more calorie dense treats, just having the creamy every night. And the final piece of this triad is the Ninja air fryer, or any sort of air fryer really. I just bought the Ninja one because the Ninja Creami was such a good product. Bodybuilders have been talking for years about how the biggest thing that they miss on a cut is crispy textures, because people just sort of devolve to eating slop bowls and dog bowls all the time whenever they're trying to get lean. So having an air fryer just to crisp up your proteins, or crisp up some wedges or some chips to have with your low calorie sauce, these are the sorts of treats that people used to really miss on their cuts, and now you don't have to, having an air fryer. So the walking pad is cheap. The Ninja Creami and the air fryer are a little bit more expensive, but I think they're definitely worth their money if you have it. Will getting lean hurt your performance? Absolutely not in the long run. It's going to improve your performance. It might tank some of your workouts in the short term, but that's why too many people bail on their cuts. They tank a couple of workouts and then they think that they've got too lean or something like that. You're just in a short-term energy deficit. The moment you go back to eating at maintenance or even slightly above that, you're going to have insane workouts again. Hell, even in an energy deficit, it's probably you just being soft, especially if you're not that lean yet. If you still got belly rolls, you're being mentally soft. You have to find some way other than food to motivate yourself to train. I believe in you. Or if you are trying to do a fast cut, you should accept that you're going to have bad workouts, but the trade-off is you're going to be lean sooner, and then you could get back to eating at maintenance and fueling your workouts better again. So if you feel like crap and your performance drops anytime you try to get lean, it's a skill issue with your dieting and you need to work on your nutritional habits, or it's you not managing your expectations because you're in an aggressive cut because you're trying to get it over with soon. Yes, some people, especially in the hybrid space, have an issue with a chronic lack of energy availability, but again, unless that's you specifically, you don't have to worry about that on the short term. The first key to staying lean is to actually get yourself lean in the first place. Once you've actually got yourself lean, you're not going to go back into a surplus. I actually encourage everyone to try to maintain as best as they can, because realistically, most people are going to slip up a little bit and they're just going to have a very slow rate of gain. So with any of my athletes, I don't do any deliberate bulking. I just sort of call it like lifestyle-based nutrition. So we just alternate between these periods of cutting and then lifestyle-oriented nutrition, or more performance-oriented nutrition, having a little bit more fuel for your workouts. It allows us to stay relatively lean year-round. So you just enter these maintenance periods where you have this really slow, unintentional rate of gain. And any time where you start to get too fluffy to the point where you feel like it's impeding your aesthetics, your health, or just your performance levels, then we go back back into a dieting phase and it's just a nice reset. So intentional bulking, in my opinion, is silly. No one really needs to intentionally try to gain weight. It doesn't help you build muscle past the point where you're properly fueling for your workouts. So there's just no point to do it. You might as well, like I said, I'd rather have people going out and socializing and eating food with their mates than sitting at home force feeding themselves ice cream because they're bulking. It just doesn't make sense. And then just the other biggest factor that you need to reflect on is, did you use your cut to build the habits you need to sustain your lean physique? So if you didn't, you need to enter a longer diet period next time you attempt this. And it's just going to give you more practice living the lifestyle that you need to maintain your ideal physique. Hopefully the other thing that you've picked up on in this video is that dieting is highly individualized, and either for yourself or you need to work with a coach that can individualize your approach to nutrition for you. Let me know if you would like some help with that. Check out our education down below and all our other links. There's some free programs down there, and I'll see you soon with another video.